You have all this evidence, you have all these people talking about all these things
Mhm.
revolving the case, but nobody's really talking about where is she and how to find her.
Right.
And that we need to focus on that now. We know what happened to her, but roughly,
Mhm.
where is she?
It's been 49 years since Trenny's disappearance. Based on the evidence that we have right now, how exactly can she be found?
Well, like I was saying earlier about her footsteps,
Mhm.
um, her footsteps coming from Forney, that
Mhm.
that whole section is exactly half a mile long, and that plays a huge role, huge, because if those was her footsteps and they stopped at that half mile down, that would have led you straight to the double second intersection to Double
Mhm.
Springs. So we need to be looking from that area all the way along that section trail, all the way um, out to the shelter, at least 2 miles. We know she wouldn't be all the way to the shelter or past the shelter because there were people in it. They would have been seen.
Mhm.
So we know to go somewhere before the shelter and all along that Appalachian section trail that meets Forney. All that needs checked all about a mile or so back because it's all downhill, which goes with what Robert said when he was trying to pin it on Calvin. So that right there is enough to go on to pretty much know what to look for. We know to look for a hillside and just keep going.
Morris, let's talk a little bit first about who you are and how you really got involved with the Trini Gibson case.
Well, several years ago, I took up a new hobby of hiking in the mountains. Once I discovered Tennessee and Western North Carolina, that's all it took. I was hooked. So, I done it for several years, and I still do actively. And when you're doing a lot of research in the mountains, you come across things you don't expect to see. Once I discovered more about Trini and her case, I immediately got attached. I immediately took an interest in how this wasn't solved. I mean, clearly there was plenty of evidence there that more should have been done. And I just took off from there and I just kept going. And more and more research, and things like that. And I up in Kauai, formerly Klingman's Dome, it's a pretty big area, you know. So I pretty much started there. That's where I started.
What was one of the things that really drew you in and really spoke to you about Trini's case?
I think more of the fact that a 16-year-old girl went missing. There's all this evidence, family, you know, grieving for years with no answers, and I think that kind of stuck to me, and
Mm.
it made me. I wanted to do something. I was like, all this evidence, these trails are still here, and nobody's doing anything. So that was a bit disturbing that not enough has been done, and that goes on in many forms over the years, from the beginning to now, of things that hasn't been done.
One of the things that's really important for people to understand is the park was already seasoned in failure. The Dennis Martin case was the largest and like search effort ever in that park for a missing person.
And he got a lot of media coverage. I don't
Well,
feel like Trenny got the media coverage she should have had.
but that also worked out to their disadvantage because one of the problems with the Dennis Martin case was there were so many feet on the ground there that they literally trampled over potential evidence. It was sloppy. There was just a lot of things. Too many people was the biggest thing. They had way too many people on the ground, and too many people coming and volunteering. That was the other thing. It's like volunteer effort is great to a point. If somebody is first missing, and they have some kind of experience with hunting or something.
There's a situation with the search with Trenny's case too.
Right.
Um, One, I don't think there was enough. They wasn't the right people. It was kind of the opposite.
Hmm.
But the report, I got a copy of it right here. You know, Useless basically. There's only a few things in here that can actually be used. Um, now years later, we're finding out that the dogs weren't trained; they were just dogs, and people, unexperienced people, searching people who hadn't even familiar with the mountains at all. Um, really had no clue.
Neat. Yeah. The one of the things that's not listed, like in a lot of places that Michael put in the book, was names. Names were even recorded wrong.
Yeah, and a lot of it was handwritten,
Yeah.
and you can't even read half of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, the report is just a mess. And I looked at it one time, and I was like, I can't do much with this.
But what exactly do you do out there?
What I do is I go out there, and based on what evidence I had at the time when I started, but in the evidence that I have now, actual facts. And I hike the trails, her last steps, everywhere she's been, from Forney to Andrews Bald, the loop trail that loops back around, all the way back up to the intersection to the Appalachian Section Trail. And that Appalachian Section Trail is exactly a half a mile long. So it goes straight up to a second intersection, left to Double Springs at 2.5 miles, right to the base of the dome at 0.3 miles. So it's pretty close to the parking lot right there. And and I just kind of go over based on what evidence I have on facts and think, well, how did she do this but this amount of time? How was this possible for her to go here? Did she go here? Did she go to Double Springs or not? No, I don't believe she did. He got his jacket back. She was last seen at the bend around that rock where she stooped down and looked to the right. And I don't believe she went off trail there. I think she at some point went back. I think she was just distracted and she got back on trail, went around that bend. And as quickly as she probably done that, by the time the other students turned their head, they missed it. And she was last seen in that jacket. So Robert got the boy she was hiking with that day, got the jacket back at some point, which immediately made him a suspect, which I kind of suspected anyways. I remember talking a while back that maybe the scent track was rescented, by something. Maybe the perpetrator who's responsible for all this had her scent all over him somehow. I didn't know how at the time, but I was like, maybe he has her scent on him and he tracked it everywhere, getting back to his car or something like that. And then I read Michael's book, and somebody else was thinking like me, thank God, and found out that he was wearing the jacket during the search. Like Dunlap apparently seen her footsteps go from the AT on the Appalachian Section Trail for a half a mile going towards Double Springs. And for a while, I was wondering what part of that was he talking about. When I hiked it, I noticed it was very rocky, but yet, you could still leave footprints. But when you get up, for years, I thought it was, at the second intersection that he was talking about. I was thinking it was from that area going towards the shelter to the left.
Mm.
And I was like, well, that's pure rock. And these rocks couldn't have been put there during upkeep. This is rocks that's been in the earth since the mountains were formed. And you can clearly tell. And it goes on for hundreds of feet like that. So it's like if you've seen footsteps, that would have had been water prints or mud prints on top of rock.
Hmm.
So, once it got further investigated and I started thinking it more clear, he was actually talking about the section trail that meets Forney, which is all the same trail. There's two sections. You know, the Appalachian section trail meets Forney, and for a half a mile goes up to another intersection. And that both those signs have double spring shelter on them. And left a double at the second intersection. It's left a double springs at 2.5 miles. To your right, 0.3 to the base of the dome. So I was like, well, he said he claimed her footsteps went on for a half a mile. So, and then it just stops. So if her footsteps would have went on a half a mile, that would have took her straight to the second intersection to Double Springs. It looks to me like that's where it all went down. When Simpson claimed to Tina, Trenny's sister, made comments, if Calvin would have her, he would have killed her. If Calvin had her, he would have drug her down a hill about a mile or two through the woods and hid her body where she couldn't be found. He pretty much told on himself where she was at when he was trying to pin it on him. So I think that we need to be looking for a hill. But Dunlap apparently went out to the shelter and there were people out there camping, hikers. And apparently he supposedly, from what I understand, that he asked them if they seen a girl and they said no. So if that's the case, if that's actually true, then she would be, if she is down that way, she would be before the shelter.
Yeah. What are some of the things that may be a deterrent to in that area to being able to either search or to locate her?
Well, there's this theory on the ring, which we don't really know if it's even true, um, that a couple of the students, girls, that were on the trail that day ended up with her ring.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an expensive ring, and if it, if they did have it, which we don't know if that's even true or not, how did they get it? You
Mm-hmm.
know, did they find it on the trail? If so, where did they find it on the trail? Because if they found it on the trail, that could have been where she was first attacked, which could help formulate a timeline. So that, yeah, it's very important. The ring is very important. If that is true, I think it needs further investigated to find out if this is even accurate. And one of the girls that apparently had it, apparently it was two, but one of the girls that had it first is still alive. The other one passed away, but apparently the first one is still alive and could come forward and talk. She never has.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a simple question, really. Nobody wants to hurt her, put her in jail. You ain't going to go to jail for answering a question like that. We just want to know, did you have the ring? And if so, how did you get it? Was it handed to you by Robert or Gary, or did you find it on the trail? If you found it on the trail, we need to know where, because that helps formulate a timeline, which is huge evidence, huge.
Mm-hmm.
And it could lead to step by step where she went from there and how to locate her. They didn't get there till around noon, I think. 12:30.
Right.
Yeah. And everybody was back on the bus by 3:30, so roughly. So, yeah, they didn't have a
So
lot. They had roughly 3 hours for all this to happen. And for
right,
Robert
right.
to commit this crime and get back on the school bus. And he was the last one on the bus, which there was speculation it was there due to his weight at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone with any mind that worked correctly would know that that's immediately suspicious.
How long does it usually take to hike from the parking lot to Andrews Ball?
Um, I did it, I think, in about an hour, maybe a little less, 50, 55 minutes, but it depends on how you hike. My first time I hiked it, I hiked it slow because I was, trying to scope out the area. I made a lot of stops and tried to figure out, more about the case and the timeline and things like that. But if you're just hiking it straight, you could do it in under an hour. You could get there in under an hour.
I guess the things that like really throw me off about the case in general, what was he doing between the time, because there was all these students around, Trini was doing her thing, you know, walking down trying to get away from him obviously, but she was doing her thing, hiking with the rest of the class, and there's no visual on him until after he gets back late to the bus. So
No one reports. There has been no claim of anyone seeing him, and that's I've thought a lot about that too. Nobody, or at least that they're saying, because his dad was the DA. Is why wasn't he questioned by the time he was of age? Why didn't they come back to him? You know, was he really that scared of his dad? The FBI? I mean, really? I mean,
I know, right, there's a lot about that makes me kind of
yeah,
go
yeah.
yeah.
I don't get that. I don't get it either. I don't get it.
But and there's it's really hard to know. I mean, there's just no evidence to back up you
Yeah,
know what really happened. And yeah, is there's so much we could speculate on. We could like mm, kind of look at the history of the area and the organizations involved, and kind of form an opinion. But there's really no way to be able to pinpoint exactly what really happened with any of that. So what are your plans with this? What is going through your head right now about what you want to do with this information?
I want to take all this new evidence and what I come up with, and I want to go back out there in this area, which I will be doing soon, and look for her and take the evidence, as in, I know to look downhill and I know to go back at least over a mile. So I can take that, and that's not guaranteed to even be a fact, but it is pretty good speculation of that it is a very good possibility that that is the situation due to what he said in his statement to Tina. So I do want to go out and check the hillsides, and I want to go back far enough based on her footsteps, where her last footsteps were, and kind of go from there. But not just there, but the whole area, because just because that's where her footsteps stopped, it's not 100% to be her footsteps. Because
Mhm.
apparently that was a popular shoe back then. A lot of people wore them. But it's a rainy day. She's on the trail. It's most likely hers. So I I do want to check the area pretty hard. Anything, and I've
Right.
talked to Hope, her mother, and I promised her I'd do everything I can, and I will keep that promise. I'll keep trying to do everything I can to help find her, and bring her home, give her proper burial, proper funeral, what she deserves. She don't deserve to be left out in the elements like that,
Right.
And let's try to do something good. If I'm going to do anything important with my life that matters, this is what it's going to be.
And if you've made it this far, thank you very much. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this show or any of my other content. In conclusion, tonight, I would like to thank Arthur Morris, first of all, for the interview and his insight, and also for the video and photos that he provided for this interview. I would also like to thank Laura Risti for her ongoing support and her feedback on all things that I'm doing related to the Trenny Gibson case. And I would like to remind you all to join me at magicaljourney.com for my blog update which is currently about the Trenny Gibson story. In conclusion, if you have thoughts on the case, on the current information that has been shared through either Michael's book or through Arthur's interview, please feel free to drop me a line below. And always, always, may your journey always be magical.
I've waited for so long to see when you come back to me. Through the wars and battles that were lost, we're born again, it's you and me. The rest is history. Past lives. Past lives. Did we dance together on different floors in 1500 or 1504? We must have been lovers, we must have been something in our past life.